My mother tapped her glass and smiled at everyone before saying, "We only wanted immediate family tonight." Then she looked at me like I was a server who had stayed too long. My brother stood up, opened the dining room door, and waited. 23 people watched me place my napkin beside a plate I had brought from my own kitchen. My father kept cutting his steak. My sister-in-law smirked into her wine. No one said my name. No one asked me to stay. I picked up my purse, walked past the cake with their 40-year photo on it, and heard the lock click behind me. 1 hour later, everything changed. I didn't go far. The parking lot was full, so I sat in my car at the edge, where the streetlight flickered and made everything look older than it was. I kept my hands on the wheel even after the engine cooled. Through the front window, I could see the dining room glow and shadows moving across the curtains. Laughter rose and fell like it always did in that house. It sounded practiced. My phone buzzed once. A message from my brother. "Don't make this a thing. No question. No apology." I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. I thought about going home. It would have been the easier choice. Heat up leftovers, wash a plate, pretend the evening didn't land the way it did. But something held me there. Not anger. Not even hurt in the loud sense. Just a quiet, steady feeling that I was watching something important, and if I left, I would miss it. At 7:18, another car pulled in fast, tires crunching over the gravel. A woman stepped out with a slim black folder tucked under her arm. She checked the house number, then walked straight to the front door like she had done it before. The porch light caught her face for a second. I recognized her from a meeting months ago. She worked with the bank. The door opened. My brother's posture changed the moment he saw her. Even from the car, I could tell. He held the door wide, stepped aside, nodded too much. She said something I couldn't hear. He called for my father. The curtains shifted. A chair scraped. The music stopped. I reached for my phone again, not to call anyone, just to have something in my hand. Another message appeared, this time from an unknown number. "I'm here. It's time." No name. No greeting. Just that. Inside, people stood up. My mother moved quickly to the sideboard, straightening plates that didn't need straightening. My sister-in-law gathered the wine glasses like she was clearing a stage. My father came into view slower, wiping his hands on a cloth. He didn't smile. The woman opened the black folder and placed a stack of papers on the table where the cake had been. The cake got pushed to the side, frosting smearing against the cardboard. No one seemed to notice. My brother glanced toward the window, toward the parking lot. For a second, I thought he saw me. He didn't wave. He didn't come out. He turned back to the table and lowered his voice. I watched my father read. His shoulders dropped a little with each page. My mother's hand hovered over his arm but never touched him. She kept looking at my brother, waiting for a cue. He gave none. Another car pulled up behind mine. A man stepped out with a small case and a calm expression. He joined the woman at the door. This time, my father himself opened it. He said something that made the man nod once, then step inside. I remembered the conversation we had in the kitchen 2 weeks earlier. My father had asked me about documents. Old ones. Titles, signatures, dates. He spoke like he was asking about recipes. I answered the way I always did. Clearly. Without adding anything that wasn't asked. He had said, "We'll handle it as a family." Then he had looked past me when my brother walked in. In the dining room, the papers changed hands. The man with the case set it on the table and opened it. I couldn't see what was inside, only the way everyone leaned in at the same time, like a reflex. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my father. Just one line, "Where are you?" I didn't reply. I watched. My brother spoke with his hands, quick, certain, pointing to places on the pages. The woman shook her head once, then again, slower. She tapped a paragraph and slid the paper back toward him. He laughed, a short sound that didn't match the room. My mother finally touched my father's arm. He didn't move. He kept reading. The man with the case said something that made my sister-in-law step back, her smile gone. A minute later, the front door opened again. My brother stepped out onto the porch, phone pressed to his ear. He paced, then stopped, then paced again. He looked at the street, not at me. His voice carried a little through the open air. "No, not tonight. We can fix it. It's just paperwork." He ended the call and stood still, as if waiting for a different answer to arrive. Inside, the woman closed the folder. The sound of it was soft, but it felt final. My father signed something. His hand was steady. He didn't look up. My brother went back in. I sat there under the flickering light and understood that the door had not been closed on me by accident. It had been closed because they thought I wasn't needed in that room. The house grew quiet in a new way, the kind that doesn't come from people being polite, but from something shifting underneath them. At 8:02, my phone lit up again. This time, it was my father. I didn't move right away. The word "come" stayed on my screen like it had weight. Not "please." Not "can you." Just "come back." It sounded like a correction, not an invitation. Inside, chairs scraped again. Someone opened a window. I could hear voices now, not clear, but sharper than before. The easy rhythm from earlier was gone. Everything sounded like it had edges. My mind didn't go to the message. It went to the pattern. When I was 8, my mother told me to give my room to my cousin for a week. It became a month. I slept on the couch and folded my blanket each morning so it wouldn't look temporary. When my cousin left, the room stayed rearranged. My things came back in boxes. At 12, my brother forgot to sign a school form. I had signed mine the night before. My mother called the school and said I must have mixed them up. I stood in the office while she explained it. The principal looked at me like I had done something clever. I didn't correct her. At 19, my father asked me to help with the books for the shop. "Just until we find someone," he said. I worked evenings after classes, tracked invoices, caught small errors that kept becoming big ones. When the accountant finally came, my father introduced me as the one who helps sometimes. I smiled. I kept my files neat. The phone buzzed again. My brother, "Stop being dramatic." I hadn't said anything. I hadn't moved. Still, the sentence arrived like a reflex. Through the window, I saw the cake again, pushed further aside. The frosting had started to sink. A slice had been cut but not served. Plates were stacked where they didn't belong. The woman from the bank stood with her arms folded now, watching more than speaking. The man with the case had papers spread out in a line, like he was building a map. I thought about the kitchen conversation from 2 weeks ago, but this time I remembered the part that came after my brother walked in. He had leaned against the counter, casual. "We don't need to go through everything," he said. "It's simple. We'll just transfer the house and the shop into one name for now. Cleaner that way." My father had looked at him, then at me. A small pause. "Temporary," my brother added. I had asked one question. "Whose name?" My brother had smiled. "Mine, for now. I'll handle it." Less confusion. My father had nodded, slow. My mother had opened a drawer and started looking for something that wasn't there. No one asked what I thought. No one asked what I knew. That night, I went home and opened the old files I had kept. Not because I was planning anything, just because I had always been the one who checked. Titles, dates, signatures, the small things that decide who owns what when the room gets quiet. The next day, I called the bank to confirm a detail that had been bothering me. The woman I spoke to asked for my name. There was a pause on her end too, then a different tone. "Careful. Can you come in?" she asked. I went. I brought copies. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't raise my voice. I just placed the papers on the desk and asked if everything matched. It didn't. Some signatures were placed where they shouldn't be. Some dates didn't line up with the records. There were forms that suggested a transfer had already been initiated. There were fields that had been filled in after the fact. The woman didn't say fraud. She didn't need to. She said, "We should look at this properly." She gave me a card with her direct line. I left the office and sat in my car, much like I was sitting now, with the same steady feeling. Not anger. Not relief. Just clarity, like a window being wiped clean. I didn't call my family that day. I didn't confront anyone. I filed what needed to be filed. I asked for a review. I followed the steps the woman outlined, one by one, without adding anything extra. Back in the present, my father moved away from the table and sat down. He pressed his fingers to his temple, then lowered his hand slowly. My mother hovered behind him, looking from his face to the papers to my brother. My brother spoke again, faster now. He pointed at a page, then another. The man with the case shook his head. The woman tapped the same paragraph as before. My phone buzzed a third time. My father again. Now, I looked at the house. I looked at the door they had closed on me not an hour ago. When I was 24, my brother had a small accident with the shop account. Nothing public, nothing that couldn't be adjusted. I spent 2 nights correcting entries, moving things into place so the numbers would hold. On the third day, my father thanked him for handling it. I had nodded. I always did. In the dining room, my sister-in-law picked up her phone and stepped away, whispering into it. She glanced toward the window, then quickly away. My brother followed her with his eyes, then turned back to the table, his jaw tight. The cake sat untouched. Another message came, this time from the unknown number again. They've seen it. I closed my eyes for a moment, not to avoid anything, just to feel where I was. The streetlight flickered once more. A moth circled it, tapping the glass again and again. Inside, my father stood up. He said something that made everyone stop. Even from here, I could feel the shift. Not loud, not dramatic, just final in a quiet way. My phone vibrated in my hand. Come back, my father wrote again. I set the phone down on the seat beside me and watched the house that had always made room for everyone else, except when it mattered. I picked up my phone, then put it back down. For years, I had moved when they called. Not quickly, not slowly, just reliably. If there was a gap, I filled it. If there was a mistake, I softened it. If there was a question, I answered it before it became a problem. It wasn't something I announced. It was something I did. Inside the house, my father remained standing. He wasn't speaking now. He was listening. The woman from the bank had turned a page toward him and left her hand there, as if holding the place steady. The man with the case had closed the latches and stepped back, giving space without leaving. My brother's voice rose for a second, then dropped. He pointed at the same line again. The woman shook her head once. The motion was small, but it didn't change. I watched my father's eyes move across the paper. He had always read slowly, like each word mattered more than the last. Tonight, it looked different. Not slower, just heavier. My phone lit up again. My brother this time. Don't do this. The words were shorter than before. The tone had shifted. There was something under it now. Not concern. Not quite. Something closer to pressure. I remembered the afternoon my mother asked me to sign a document I hadn't seen. It's routine, she said, sliding the page toward me. I asked for a copy. She laughed, not unkindly, just dismissive. You've always been so careful, she said, as if it were a small flaw. I didn't sign that day. I said I would look at it later. She took the paper back, folded it once, and placed it in a drawer. We didn't talk about it again. In the dining room, my sister-in-law had returned from her call. She stood close to my brother now, her hand on his arm, her eyes moving quickly between the people at the table. The kind of looking that searches for a solution before admitting there isn't one. My father set the paper down. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse anyone. He simply placed the page flat and aligned it with the edge of the table, the way he did with receipts at the shop. Then he asked a question. I couldn't hear it, but I could see what it did. My brother's shoulders tightened. He answered quickly. Too quickly. The woman from the bank said something in return. Calm. Precise. She tapped the same section again. My father didn't move. He waited. The room felt smaller even from where I sat. The kind of quiet that pulls everything inward. My phone buzzed again. My father. We need you. It was the first time he had used that word tonight. Need. I looked at it for a long second. Then I locked the screen. The boundary didn't arrive like a decision. It settled, the way a weight finds its place. Not loud. Not sudden. Just clear. I had already done what was mine to do. Weeks ago, in that office, I had placed the documents on a desk and asked a question. I had answered every follow-up without adding anything extra. I had given them what they needed to see what was there. I hadn't named it. I hadn't pushed it. I had simply made it visible. Inside the house, my father sat down again, slower this time. My mother moved to his side, her hand finally resting on his shoulder. He didn't lean into it. He kept his gaze on the table. My brother stepped back, then forward again, as if he couldn't decide which position held. He looked toward the door once, then back at the papers. His movements had lost their certainty. The man with the case spoke again, measured, even. He gestured toward the folder, then toward my father. The woman nodded. Another message came. My brother. Answer your phone. A second later, please. The word hung there, unfamiliar in his voice. I thought about the nights I stayed at the shop after closing, reconciling numbers that didn't match. The mornings I woke early to prepare things no one asked me to prepare because I knew they would need it. The small ways I kept things from slipping. I thought about the dinner table an hour ago. The way the door had been opened. The way no one had said my name. I didn't feel the urge to explain anything to anyone. Inside, my father picked up a pen. He held it for a moment, then set it down without writing. He said something else, softer this time. My mother nodded quickly, as if agreeing before the sentence ended. My sister-in-law's hand slipped from my brother's arm. My phone buzzed once more. The unknown number again. They'll ask for you. I watched the front door. No one came out. The boundary held. Not as a wall, but as a line I could finally see. For the first time, I understood that not stepping back into that room was also an action. And that it was enough. I started the car, then turned it off again. The engine made a small ticking sound as it cooled, like it was deciding something. I sat with my hands in my lap and looked at the house one more time. The curtains were still open. The table looked crowded in a way that had nothing to do with people. My phone lit up. My father called. I let it ring. Inside, my brother moved quickly toward the front door, then stopped halfway, as if he remembered something that kept him inside. He turned back. The woman from the bank spoke again, low and even. The man with the case lifted one sheet and held it in place. My father didn't look at the door. I put the phone face down. When I was 27, I found a folder in the shop drawer labeled temporary. It held copies of agreements that were meant to be replaced later. Some never were. Dates had passed. Terms had changed. No one had gone back to update them. I had stayed late that night and sorted them into piles. Keep. Fix. Remove. It wasn't dramatic work. It was quiet and exact. The kind that prevents problems before they appear. No one asked what I had done the next morning. The drawer looked cleaner. That was enough. In the dining room now, the same kind of sorting was happening, but it wasn't in my hands. The papers were spread out, aligned, separated. The woman pointed to one set, then another. My father nodded once, slowly. My brother shook his head. He spoke, then stopped. He picked up his phone, then set it down. His movements had lost their rhythm. My phone buzzed again. A message from my father. Please come in. The word please sat differently from the others. It didn't erase what had happened. It didn't soften the door that had closed. It simply existed, late and quiet. I picked up my keys and held them, feeling the edges press into my palm. I thought about walking back in. The room would shift when I entered. It always did. Questions would turn toward me. Papers would move in my direction. Someone would say my name. I would answer. I would clarify. I would fix. The pattern was simple. I set the keys down. Inside, my father pushed his chair back and stood again. He gathered a small stack of papers and slid them toward the woman. She accepted them without expression and placed them into her folder. The man with the case closed it fully this time. My mother's hand fell from my father's shoulder. She looked at my brother, waiting. He didn't look back. My sister-in-law stepped away from the table and moved toward the hallway, her phone already in her hand. She spoke into it, her voice quick and low. She didn't return. The cake sat at the edge of the table, one slice missing, the rest untouched. My phone buzzed once more. The unknown number. They're proceeding. I didn't need more detail. The consequences had already begun to settle into place, the way dust does when the air stills. Not loud. Not sudden. Just inevitable. A few minutes later, my brother came out onto the porch. He looked toward the parking lot, finally seeing me. He didn't wave. He didn't call out. He stood there, his phone in his hand, as if the next step should come from somewhere else. I didn't move. He took a step forward, then stopped at the edge of the light. For a second, it looked like he might walk down the path. Instead, he turned back inside. The door remained open behind him. Inside, my father sat down again, slower than before. The woman closed her folder. The man with the case picked it up and held it at his side. They spoke to my father, one at a time. He listened. No one came out again. I started the car. This time, I didn't turn it off. As I pulled away, the house grew smaller in the mirror, the light from the dining room fading into the rest of the street. The flickering lamp above the parking spot steadied for a moment, then dimmed. My phone stayed quiet. At the next corner, I stopped and looked straight ahead. The road was empty. The night felt ordinary again. I drove home. The apartment was the same as I had left it. Clean counters. A single plate in the sink. The small stack of folders on the table where I had placed them weeks ago. I set my purse down and washed my hands. For a moment, I stood there, listening to the water run, then turned it off. There was nothing to fix. No one to answer. No room to re-enter. I dried my hands and moved the folders into a drawer, closing it gently. The quiet that followed didn't feel like absence. It felt like space.